Hi there, thank you so much for clicking the thumbnail and being interested in my work. In this video I share with you my techniques and tips on how I achieve the skin tones when drawing feet. So be sure to watch it right through till the end, because here and there I'll be slowing things down in real time so you can take a closer look. So let's dive in and take a look. Right, I'm starting the drawing, the outline, with the centre point in the middle of the board, and I do the same for the reference image, and from that point then I work out the distance and proportions of the rest of it. So basically just doing it by eye really. It all comes in time. I've got quite a lot of videos now on my channel if you want to find out in depth how I draw outline. Drawing the outline of the toes can be quite difficult, because when you look at them they seem different to what the outline looks, so you have to go beyond the light and shade. So squint your eyes and just see the outline, just focus on the outline and draw that. It helps to actually reduce the reference image so it's small enough so you can see the whole thing at once, because if you have it too blown up you can get lost in the actual size of each toe. So I suggest really reducing it down so you can see the whole thing, and then you'll find that you'll get a more of an accurate drawing. You notice here that I'm using the rubber a lot, or the kneaded eraser, so I use that to actually sculpture the outline. The kneaded eraser I use is really good because it don't actually damage the tooth of the pastel mat at all. So what I'll do is I'll leave a list of materials in the description below so you can check that out later. Now these are the pencils I'm going to be using for the underdrawing, basically primary colours and the green for the secondary colours, and here's the darker pencils I'm using for the shadows. I'm using the kneaded eraser first just to take the excess grey. That's a 708 Carbothello grey pencil I use for the outline there. I'm just rubbing it off now so you can see a ghost image, so it's not going to mix too much with the actual colours. Always start with putting a bit of white in there first, in the light areas and mid-tones. So putting a bit more pressure if it's lighter, less pressure when it's a mid-tone. Basically the underdrawing is to reshape the outline, because now you're putting form in there, so you're creating light and shade. So basically you get an idea of where the darkness is, the mid-tones. But I'm not really interested in detail at this stage. It's all about getting the shape correct and the feel, and try and get some sort of form, so when you do put the next stage, which will be the rich colours, it'll be a lot easier. Once I've got the white down, I just glaze over them with a little bit of red just to make it a soft pink colour. It's just to get rid of that starkness, because it isn't pure white. There's a lot of subtleties in the skin tones, which I'll go into more depth later on in the video when I start putting the rich colours on and the details. Just going to speed up this underdrawing stage so it gives me more time to discuss how I put the rich colours on and the details. But basically with this stage here, all it is about getting form. So I'm using the red, yellow ochre and mainly just the green, just to desaturate the red. For the shadows I'm using dark brown and blue. I'm mixing a bit of ultramarine blue here and there as well when it's needed, but again it's not that important with the colours at this stage because it's just an underdrawing. This is all about getting the shape correct and the feel right. I really enjoy doing the underdrawing because it's a chance just to be loose and free flowing and just really let go and just feel the actual object you're drawing and just totally be in the moment now, here and now. So don't overthink it, don't have any expectations or any memories, just be totally now and just really enjoy the freedom of it. Right, here's the selection of pencils I'm using from Caran d'Ache, the rich colours, great pencils to use, and also using the Carbothello. These are Carbothello ones that I'll be using. and Conti A Paris ones. What I do when I start the rich colours is to basically put the white in first, because what you're trying to do is get a glow from underneath. When you look at skin, there's like a glistening glow coming from it or underneath it. So what I tend to do is put the white down, then glaze over the top. So I'm just using a bit of yellow ochre here to just get some sort of colour down, and then mixing in then the Caran d'Ache white. Now this is the Chinese white. There's two whites of the Caran d'Ache range. There's the Chinese white and the azurite white. Now the Chinese white is a lot warmer white. There's a bit of yellow in it, so it's quite nice and subtle. So basically what I'm doing is just trying to feel my way. This is still a blocking stage. This is a rich stage, what I'll call. The detail will be later on in the video. But basically what I'm doing now is just getting more and more refined, getting the correct shape. But now I'm interested in trying to get the correct value as well, and also the correct chroma. So it's not just about the values being correct, it's about getting that brightness and freshness and that glow right as well, to give it that realism. What I always tend to do as well is work on one part of this of a section, so you get to know what's needed, and then once you find that solution of what needs to be mixed, then move on to the rest of it. So what I'm doing here is just experimenting and trying out on one toe, just what's needed in the shadows. Now to create the shadow of the skin, I'm using red, obviously the warm red, but to make that into a shadow or desaturate it, I'm adding green, which creates a natural shadow. If you're enjoying this video, why not subscribe? It's absolutely free, then you're sure not to miss any of my future videos. Now sometimes to get that chroma you need that little bit of lemon yellow as well to give it that zinginess. Even in a shadow there might be a zinginess in the shadow, or even a warm shadow, so you still need to add that little bit of lemon yellow, just does the trick. For the deep shadows I've used a cold red and a cold green, dark green. But if it's not dark enough, I'll use a little bit of umber brown with dark ultramarine, just to give it that more depth. Here's a little bit of real-time footage now, so you can see how I'm softening things with the Carbofellow white. It's a great pencil that is, actually, just to do that. It's titanium white, so it's really nice to mix in with the colours as well. But it's a very versatile. It's quite chalky, so it's really nice to blend colours. So if you're using Caran d'Ache colours, which sort of grab the pastel matte, you can always soften over that with a bit of Carbofellow. Now I'm only using the slightest bit of pressure with the pencil as well, so it's just letting the layers develop slowly, because if you go too hard with the pencil it creates too much of a deep mark and it's hard then to get the subtleties. So I'm using it very, very lightly, one layer on top of the other. You can see here I'm using the dark green to create the shadow of the red, and then just keep backwards and forwards mixing a bit of red, then a dark green. Sometimes you use the olive green if it's more subtle. Just jump forward a bit, so I've done all the toes, they're similar to what I've just shown you. Now I'm working on other areas, so trying to get again that richness which comes through the skin. So I'm putting the white down so that'll shine through the colour that I'm glazing over the top. So it can be a bit scratchy when you start doing this, so you have to be patient and just know that it will change eventually. So it's just a case of just persevering with it. Now, before you can get the subtleties in the actual light areas, I tend to find that I need to get the actual extremes done first. So I've started to work on the shadows more, and then try and subtle things up around it and try and get more of an accurate way. So I'm jumped from one thing to another. I don't just focus on one area and do that and then move on. So I'm doing the whole thing as my instincts tell me to. So if I just feel that I need to go that part, I will do it. I'll just go with the flow. What I've found is there's no point in spending loads of time on one area where it's light, because when you start doing the darks, you might find that you spent all that time putting the details in and it don't look right now, because when you put the darks in, it changes things. So that's why, another reason why I work on getting the lights and darks done at the same time, and then the mid-tone seems to just flow and fall into place. But again, this is not a detail stage. It's still a blocking stage, but it's more an accurate feel for the values and the chroma. So that's what I'm working on, trying to get the chroma right and the shadows right and all the things in between. Just like to say a massive thank you to all my Patreons who pledge each month, which helps me to create all this free content. I really appreciate your help in supporting me with my art. If you're considering supporting me by joining Patreon and would like the benefit of longer, slower and more in-depth videos, please find in the description below more details. With my technique, you really have to be patient, because it's a matter of persevering and keep adding the layers, and eventually the texture and the colours will shine through, almost like marble. There'll be all different shades and subtleties. Now, shadows, they tend to be really darker against the object, and then it gets more blurred as it goes away from the object. So what I've used underneath the foot is pure black, and then I've mixed a bit of brown with the black. I always tend to mix something in with the black, that it don't look so stark then. If you're enjoying this video, why not give it a like and share it with your friends? It would mean so much to me, as it would help the channel to grow. Here's a little bit of real-time footage now, just to show you how I do those veins in the foot. So using the white really to map it out first. Then I'm using the olive green, just very light pressure. No, they're not pressing on at all, hardly, just a very skimming across the surface, and then putting the red with it, mixing that with it. It's just a bit of just scraping it again, and just rub your finger just to blend it together. Then it's a case then of going over them with a little bit of blue, just to get that sort of the right shade of green. It's like a greeny blue, the vein is. So it's just playing about with all these colours, because the primaries, because you're using red, blue and yellow, it's intermixable. So if it goes too blue, you can change that by putting a bit of red, make it grey, and then you can change it to whatever colour. Once you put it into a neutral colour, you can change it to whatever you want. So you find that once you start using the primary colours as well, you actually see more colours when you're looking at the reference, because you get used to all these subtle blends. It brings out more when you actually see the reference. It's surprising. Just conscious of the length of the video, it's getting a bit long again, so what I'm doing now is speeding this up for a little bit. Basically what I'm using is those rich pencils from the Caran d'Ache to freshen things up. Now there's a pencil which is like a pinky colour, which is just a warm red and white mix, And then there's these like yellow ochre mixed pencils, which are like flesh tone tints. So basically it's just a yellow ochre with a bit of red in it in some instance, or just yellow ochre and white. If you haven't got those pencils in your kit, just use yellow ochre and white and add a bit of red to it, but I use them because it's just quicker and you get interesting textures when the colours are pre-mixed. But just work with what you've got in your kit. There's a bit of real time now, just showing you how I'm doing the details. It's just very, very subtle. You just get more and more tighter with the actual movements. Because when you do the underdrawing, it's very big marks and loose. The rich colour stage, the second stage, that's a little bit more refined, but the details, you're just tightening everything up a little bit, just making more subtleties. But another thing what you're looking at as well is making sure that the edges is correct. So some places are blurred, some are sharp, so that's what I'm working with the details, is just making sure that the chrome is right, but the actual edges are correct as well as the values. So there's edges added to the list of things you do when you do the detail stage. It's a good thing really as well is to work on different areas, so just let your mind relax, open the heart, and just let instincts take over. You'll get a feeling what needs to be done. You'll work on one area, then all of a sudden you'll just go to another area, because what you've done on that previous area is changed what needs to be done on another. So you have to keep going backwards and forwards until it all becomes balanced. So you might be working on one area, then all of a sudden for some reason you're on a different one. So just go with it and just enjoy the freedom of it as well, so you're not too fixated in just one area with tunnel vision. Again, here's some more real time just to show you how I'm doing the chroma and how to achieve that, because on these veins they just tend to sort of glow a little bit. So I'm putting the white down and just glazing very, very slightly, not a lot, but just a little bit of lemon yellow just makes all the difference. I tend not to try and draw everything exactly what I see on the reference as well, so I don't want to really be fixated in trying to make everything absolutely spot on, because sometimes it can create tension, and that you can see that in your work then if you're not careful. Really looking for an exact replica. I'm looking at my interpretation of what I'm seeing. Hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Here's the actual work at the correct angle rather than being in perspective on the easel. If you're interested in seeing any more videos, here's some links for you to check out.